Tonight, Arizona teachers walk out, why the Korean War never ended, and Democrats take aim at Paul Ryan's seat. Today, a jury found Bill Cosby guilty of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault. Andrea Constant accused Cosby of drugging and sexually molesting her in 2004. She's one of dozens of women who've said the comedian assaulted them, but hers is the only case to go to trial so far.
It is not just a victory for the 62 of us publicly known Cosby survivors whom Gloria Allred has helped give a voice. It is also a victory for womanhood, and it is a victory for all sexual assault survivors.
President Trump has a new Secretary of State. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito swore in former CIA Director Mike Pompeo shortly after his nomination cleared the Senate in a 57-42 vote. In a kind of test run for the post, Trump sent Pompeo to secretly visit North Korea earlier this month. The Senate Judiciary Committee approved bipartisan legislation to protect Special Counsel Robert Mueller from being fired by President Trump until the Russia probe ends.
In 44 years in the Senate, I've never been this concerned.
The vote divided Republicans. 4 of them joined the Democrats to vote for the bill, and 7 opposed it. The legislation's unlikely to become law. Even though Facebook and Cambridge Analytica have said they deleted data from 50 million Facebook profiles, the Cambridge University researcher who collected it in the first place told Vice News that a copy still exists.
Where is all that data? Is it still out there?
From my understanding, it is. We deleted all of our copies of the data, but obviously I've had a lot of conversations with folks since this all kicked off, and I am aware that it seems that some data still exists.
So the data you collected is still
somewhere
floating around?
Somebody did not delete it.
Whistleblower Christopher Wiley also says he deleted his copy of the raw data. Today, teachers in Colorado and Arizona joined the wave of educators protesting around the country. The simultaneous walkouts follow similar ones in West Virginia and Oklahoma. And they stem from similar gripes: insufficient funding for public schools and low pay for public school teachers. But there are differences too. In Arizona, the movement is more political, and its leadership is less experienced.
Oh, okay. Hey, Doug.
2 years ago, Noah Carvelis was in college. Now, he's helping lead one of the largest teacher protests in the country.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. I was just a 23-year-old guy just hanging out, sitting in the pool on the weekends with my girlfriend, going to the farmer's market, and now it's this. Wow. It's difficult to take this next step. I'm nothing but confident that we will bring a change that is necessary for this state.
Arizona's teacher movement started just 2 months ago when an organization Noah co-founded, Arizona Educators United, began encouraging people to wear red in protest.
I truthfully never thought it would John. I thought I'd be lucky if I could get just my campus to participate in it, but it grew, and it became a statewide movement.
What are you trying to accomplish? What is the end game?
Yeah, so we put out 5 demands, and basically the demands focus on 2 really central things, and that's restoring these cuts that we've seen and increasing our per-pupil funding to the national median. And we're also demanding that educators are paid a competitive wage, and right now we're not.
In response to the initial movement, the governor proposed an increase in pay for teachers, right, by 2020, 20%. And you guys said that that was not enough.
Without a funding source, it's really kind of an empty promise. It doesn't move the needle for our colleagues who are bus drivers or reading interventionists or counselors. All these different people are included in our demands. It really comes up short.
Like West Virginia and Oklahoma, Arizona ranks near the bottom of the country in both the amount it spends per student and the amount of money it pays its teachers. But unlike in other states, Arizona's teacher movement has become more politically charged. Noah also happens to be running the campaign for Kathy Hoffman, a Democratic candidate for state superintendent. And last month, Arizona's teachers union publicly endorsed David Garcia, a Democratic candidate for governor.
We had no idea that announcement was coming.
Do you wish that they had not publicly endorsed Garcia?
Looking back, I think they realized that that was a misstep as well, because that's something that the governor has never really forgotten and he sticks to. The governor's really kind of said this is a Democratic initiative. This is coming from the Democrats, which simply isn't true. It's really not.
But you see why someone might think that.
Yeah.
The hint of partisanship has led to clashes with Republican legislators. It's also driven away some of the movement's early organizers.
Depreciation.
Like Billy Robb, who teaches at a charter school in Phoenix.
On the very first day where they told everyone to wear red. So I'm wearing red. I wear red, show up here. I hear on the news at 11:30 that the union president has just made a press conference. They're all wearing red, announcing an endorsement for David Garcia. And it's like, even if I'm a registered Democrat, I might not want David Garcia.
I don't know where you stand politically, but does injecting politics represent an issue to you in a red state?
I mean, it hurts your ability to get your goals done. Even the optics of that makes it less likely for our goals to be met. I've stopped wearing red. I'm going to be at school all week. I might, if I feel like it after work, I might go down there, but most likely I will not.
Red for A! Red for A! What do we want? Funding! When do we want it now? Our movement, united, will never be divided.
How long are you prepared to continue to walk out for?
Right now, we're taking it day by day.
EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt testified at 2 separate House hearings today. And he had a lot to answer for. Democrats in particular were out for blood.
You were unfit to hold public office and undeserving of the public trust.
Pruitt tried to preempt the questions by calling the allegations against him half-truths.
Facts are facts and fiction is fiction. And a lie doesn't become truth just because it appears on the front page of the newspaper.
But even if the charges are made up, as Pruitt says, the investigations into his conduct are very real. And they seem to be multiplying.
Reporters, protesters, and lawmakers were all waiting on the Hill this morning to get some answers from EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. And it wasn't just Democrats who wanted to voice their concerns.
I'm concerned that the good progress being made on policy front is being undercut by allegations about your management of the agency and use of its resources. These issues are too persistent to ignore.
It's hard to ignore because there are at least 5 different government offices or committees investigating Pruitt, and the concerns they have can be broken up into 3 basic categories: money, ethics, and judgment. Behind soundproof booth door number 1 are investigations into how the administrator has used taxpayer dollars. The House Oversight Committee, run by Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy, is inquiring about Pruitt's spending habits. The EPA has sent over some requested documents, but earlier this month, Gowdy wrote the EPA asking what's up with the rest of them. Specifically, documents related to waivers for each of Pruitt's first and business class flights, and any documents related to specific ongoing threats associated with the administrator's air travel. The EPA Office of Inspector General is also looking into whether Pruitt followed travel policy. And the Government Accountability Office already said the EPA violated the law by spending $43,238.68 for the installation of that privacy booth in his office, without notifying Congress first. The Office of Management and Budget is also inquiring about the booth. Pruitt tried to respond to questions about that today.
Did you know at that time that this expenditure violated Section 710 of the Financial Services and General Government Appropriations Act and the Anti-Deficiency Act? Yes or no, sir?
It's actually the opinion of the Office of General Counsel at the agency that
so you're not going to answer that question either.
As for ethics, The Office of Government Ethics encouraged the EPA Inspector General to look into the condo situation as well. Remember, that's the thing where Pruitt was renting a Capitol Hill apartment for $50 a night from the wife of an energy lobbyist. Gowdy's team's asking about that too. And then there's the overall judgment bucket. The Government Accountability Office is trying to figure out if Pruitt appearing in a trade association video to encourage farmers and ranchers to provide comments about a proposed environmental rule breaks lobbying rules. Separately, the already overworked Inspector General is digging into how raises were approved for some political appointees in the agency. Pruitt did admit today that he had authorized the raises.
I was not aware of the amount, nor was I
not the amount. Were you aware of the raises?
I was not aware of the amount, nor was I aware that of the bypassing or the PPO process not being respected.
But that's different than what he told Fox News earlier this month.
Why did you go around the president and the White House and give pay raises to two staffers?
I did not. My staff did, and I found out about that yesterday and I changed it.
There's even more. More documents, more questions, more headlines. But what we know from the Trump administration's many personnel scandals is that things can look really, really bad for you, and it doesn't really matter as long as you're keeping the president himself happy. When Sarah Sanders briefed reporters yesterday, she gave the impression that President Trump might be cooling on Pruitt.
We're evaluating these concerns, and we expect the EPA administrator to answer for them, and we'll keep you posted.
So what did the president think of Pruitt's marathon performance today on the Hill? We don't know, because instead of answering questions about it, the White House decided not to hold a briefing at all.
I was getting ready to hop in the shower and turn the TV on and saw that, and I was like, I'm going to be late to get in the office today.
I was sitting in my living room reading the paper and having coffee, and all of a sudden my phone started going off.
My voicemail was full. My text messages were overflowing and emails, and it only took 2 text messages to look at to know what had happened.
They're not talking about where they were when they heard James Comey had been fired or Lemonade dropped. They're recalling where they were when they heard Paul Ryan was retiring.
You realize something when you take this job. It's a big job with a lot riding on you, and you feel it. But you also know that this is a job that does not last forever.
Ryan retiring from Congress was big news in Washington. It was huge news 700 miles away in southeast Wisconsin, where Ryan's been a congressman for 20 years. Trump beat Hillary Clinton here by 10 points in 2016. Ryan won by 35 points. So this isn't Trump country. It's Ryan country, and now he's leaving the stage.
Would it surprise you if a Democrat was able to win in November in this district?
I don't think so. I mean, it's an off election, off year, and I think it's going to be a very close race.
I think we'd better wait to find out who's going to be running.
Yeah, right.
And what their background is, what they stand for, who their friends are.
Would you vote for a Democrat, though? I mean, are you sort of a person that could go either way, or what's your deal?
I could, I suppose, depending.
And would it surprise you guys if a Republican held the seat?
Yeah.
I would this time, yes, because Paul would have pulled a ton of votes.
Those Ryan votes are now up for grabs. And so in the days after he dropped out, the way Democrats look at this race may be changing.
Well, thanks for being here.
So nice to meet
Randy.
you.
In Wisconsin, before you can get on the ballot, you have to gather a bunch of signatures. That's what's happening here. Behind me is Randy Bryce, also known as Iron Stash. With Ryan out of the race, he's now the most famous guy running for Congress in Wisconsin 1.
First of all, it's been kind of a boring month.
Bryce embodies a kind of Democratic Party dream. He's a working-class Midwestern white guy who votes left. His story, told in a video that became a nationwide phenomenon among progressives, led to millions of dollars in fundraising and celebrity endorsements. After that, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee publicly backed Bryce against Ryan.
People say to me they feel like maybe the national party's putting the thumb on the scale in your favor. What do you say to that?
I would say that's nothing could be farther from the truth.
But the DCCC chose you, though, man. Like, there are other people who are running, right?
Well, they put our campaign on the red to blue list, which means that it's the first time that they've seen any other campaign have a chance to repeal and replace somebody like Paul Ryan. This is while he was still in the race. They had enough faith in us because they saw what we've been able to build.
Democratic officials in Wisconsin are furious at the National Party for getting involved this early. On camera, they're Wisconsin nice about it. But they refuse to go along with the DCCC.
We strongly believe that we stay out of primaries.
But the National Party's not doing that. So I wonder if you think that that's the right move.
I strongly believe that it is important for our candidates to have an opportunity to have good campaigns, and that we treat them both fairly and equally, and that we let the voters decide who our primary, who's going to be our nominee.
This is a tale of two races. The first was to find the best foil for Paul Ryan. Bryce won it. The second is a primary to determine who can flip a seat Democrats are convinced can be flipped. Bryce is winning that one too. But the ground is unsettled now with Ryan out, and other candidates are weighing a bid. Like this guy, longtime state representative Peter Barca.
Oh, it changed immediately because I think everybody just assumed that it would be almost impossible to beat the Speaker of the House. We're in an open seat, as everybody knows. That's a time when seats can flip from red to blue or blue to red.
Barca is still considering. Kathy Myers has been in for a while.
Hi, I'm Kathy Myers. It's nice to meet you. I'm running for Congress.
Okay.
And so I was wondering if you would be willing to sign my nomination papers. It just puts me on the ballot.
Yep,
Awesome.
And she's one of the people who are skeptical of Bryce. What they see is a guy who has run for office 3 times and lost. Myers has won 2 elections for school board. She's upset the National Party is standing in the way of her campaign.
Kathy Myers, everybody.
It has been really quite an eye-opening experience that that sort of political strategy has taken hold here, as opposed to a sincere effort to educate voters and get them involved.
Myers was in Kenosha talking to women. If she's going to beat the Iron Stash machine, she says these are the voters who are going to help her do it.
I don't think he's electable, to be perfectly honest. I think that that the women who have talked to me about this race and have talked to me about my primary opponent have said that the child support issue is a real problem for them.
In 2015, a state court put a lien on Bryce's property after he failed to pay child support he owed. Myers says this could be a problem for Democrats in November if Bryce is the nominee, because women won't be excited about voting for a deadbeat dad. Bryce says it's actually a reason to vote for him.
And this is something that too many people have to struggle with. This is exactly why I'm running. It's because we have dads and moms that do get behind their child support through no fault of their own. But these are the struggles. These are part of the things that I've had to deal with.
All this came out before Bryce got the National Party backing. And it's the kind of thing that a front runner in a competitive race has to deal with.
So how does it feel to be the front runner now? You're the front runner in this election.
It's different. It's very different. It really is. I'm not going to lie.
Tonight, Kim Jong-un becomes the first North Korean leader to cross the border since an uneasy truce was signed in 1953. He'll be meeting with South Korean President Moon Jae-in inside the demilitarized zone that separates the North from the South, a holdover from a war that never quite ended. When Japan surrendered to the Allied forces in September of 1945, the Korean peninsula, which had been a Japanese colony, was divided by the Soviet Union and the U.S. along the 38th parallel.
The division of Korea was really unprecedented and unexpected. Korea had been a unified nation for well over 1,000 years, but it was also a process which did not consult any Koreans. This was solely an agreement between the Americans and the Russians.
2 competing governments formed, one in Seoul led by Syngman Rhee, and one in Pyongyang, headed up by Kim Il-sung. And each one thought it had the mandate to rule the entire peninsula.
Initially, it was a civil war, essentially, between North and South Korea. But within days, the U.S. decided that they were committed to defending South Korea, and they got approval from the United Nations to send in forces to repel North Korean aggression.
After all, this was the early days of the Cold War. And to the U.S., siding with South Korea symbolized taking a stand against the spread of communism.
Our nation, all the things we believe in, are in great danger. The future of civilization depends on what we do now. and in the months ahead.
China wasn't about to let the U.S. inch up to its border and jump to North Korea's defense.
After the Chinese intervention, the Korean War changed its character. It became a war between China and North Korea on the one side and South Korea and the U.S. on the other side. The only time in history China and the U.S. went to war with each other.
The violence was brutal. At least 2 million people died. And in 1953, once the killing stopped, the U.S., China, and North Korea signed an armistice, a temporary ceasefire. But a crucial signature was missing.
The South Koreans refused to sign it. Syngman Rhee was quite resentful toward the Americans for not pushing to keep the whole of the North. He saw this as a betrayal of his own ambitions to unify Korea under the Republic of Korea. And so South Korea never signed the armistice.
Since Rhee held out, the peace deal was never formalized. And so even today, the peninsula is still technically at war. Over the years, the opposing sides have traded shots across the border and blasted propaganda at each other over loudspeakers, with some bombings and defections mixed in. But there have been only 2 one-on-one meetings between leaders from the North and South.
It's been very difficult for the two sides, North and South, to trust each other because of this legacy of war. I think that we are at the beginning of a long process of discussion, and it's better to be talking than fighting.
Now that Kanye West has returned to Twitter, the internet has been freaking out about his tweets all week, as if they forgot what Kanye was like the last time he used the site. But this time, Kanye put his metaphorical MAGA hat on when he said that he loves the way right-wing commentator Candace Owens thinks. We don't know which specific ideas he was referring to, but here's one.
Police brutality is not an issue that is facing the Black community whatsoever.
And like moths to a MAGA flame, right-wing and far-right media personalities were suddenly arguing that 808s and Heartbreak is super underrated, championing the red-pilled Kanye for daring to challenge liberals. But then Kanye upgraded his metaphorical MAGA hat to a literal one and hit the mother load. That sweet, sweet retweet from President Trump, who said, "Thank you, Kanye. Very cool." Sorry, I don't think I'm giving that tweet the right gravitas. Let's try that again.
Thank you, Kanye. Very cool.
Thanks, Tucker. And what does any online dad do once they get a retweet from the president? Why, post a photo of an Instagram account that posted the retweet. Is Kanye's week-long tweetstorm just self-promotion for upcoming albums to his nearly 30 million followers? Almost definitely. But it's so much more than just MAGA Galaxy Brain. Like a diner menu, Kanye's timeline has something for everyone. If you prefer Hillary, don't worry, Kanye loves her too. If you've been waiting for a new album, Kanye's got you covered. In fact, Kanye's got 5 albums coming for you. Want to be able to buy more Yeezys? Kanye's making them cheaper. And if you're wondering about whether Kanye is nice at ping pong, he is nice at it. If you want to read a book, psych, all of this was a book and you've already been reading it. Don't want to read? Would you rather watch 8 separate recordings of a presentation by creator of Dilbert and vocal Trump supporter Scott Adams in which he explains Kanye's tweets? How about 9?
He actually just altered reality.
People want celebrities to be all things to all people, and in new Twitter Kanye, you all finally have someone who can be everything and nothing. And by posting 81 tweets in a single day, Kanye is already acting like a presidential candidate. Very cool.
That's Vice News Tonight for Thursday, April 26th. Season 6 of Vice on HBO continues tomorrow night.
Active shooter arrives, does his evil deed, and leaves between 2 minutes and 5 minutes. Do you want someone there now to stop him before he goes in and slaughters your child?
Shot fire! Shot fire! Get down!
What do you say to those critics who say they don't want their teachers to be armed?
Yeah, they're children, and they have a perspective from a child.